Thank you very much. Distinguished delegate from Lao People's Democratic Republic, are there any other nominations for the position of chair? If there are no other nominations or objections from the floor, I formally announce that the Bureau for the Second Asian and Pacific Energy Forum will be thus composed of the following members. As chair, His Excellency Mr. Awais Leghari, Federal Minister for Energy Power Division, Pakistan, vice chairs all ministerial level delegates. Please join me in congratulating the members of the Bureau for their election. Your Excellencies, I would now like to invite His Excellency Mr. Leghari to the rostrum to assume his role as the chair of the ministerial segment of the Second Asian Pacific Energy Forum.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an honor and a great privilege for me to assume the chair of this important meeting. On behalf of other members of the Bureau, I wish to express our appreciation to the distinguished representatives for the confidence you have placed in us. As the chair of the ministerial segment of the Second Asian and Pacific Energy Forum, I am now tasked to ensure that the meeting achieves its objectives and produces fruitful outcomes. In this connection, I would like to rely on the spirit of cooperation and involvement of all distinguished delegates and the able support of the members of the Bureau. Please allow me also to express my appreciation to ESCAP for the arrangements for this meeting. I would also like to acknowledge and express my appreciation to the government of Thailand as the host country of ESCAP and its support in organizing the forum. So we'd like to move on to agenda item 4C, which is the adoption of the agenda. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we shall now take up agenda item 4C, adoption of the agenda as presented to you in the document ESCAP APEF 2018 L1. I would like to now open the floor for any comments by the delegations. Are there any comments on the provisional agenda? None. If there are no comments, the agenda in document ESCAP APEF 2018 L1 is hereby adopted. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your cooperation in adopting the agenda of the ministerial segment of the Second Asian and Pacific Energy Forum. Before we move to agenda item 5, I would like to invite the Secretariat to make some announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we will now take a brief break to take a group photo of our distinguished ministers and heads of delegation. We invite those of you who have previously contacted by the Secretariat for photos to step out of the conference room at this time. So the session will resume in 10 minutes at 10 o'clock. Thank you very much.
I'd like to
Yeah, that's
I'd like to recognize the honorable delegate from Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm speaking in my capacity as the Vice Chair of the Senior Segment and Facilitator of the Agenda Item 2 of the draft Ministerial Declaration. We had discussion on the under Agenda Item of the Senior Segment on the draft resolution, but we need to, we made great progress, but we have to conclude this deliberation today in parallel to the ministerial segments. So I'd like to invite the interested parties and delegations to convene at the conference room 4 to continue and finalize as soon as possible the draft resolution declaration of the ministerial segment that is to be brought to the action and consideration for the under agenda item 7 tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this.
Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. Give my warm regards to all people.
So let the House come in order, please, and let's resume the proceedings. Thank you. So we shall now take up agenda item 5, the policy perspectives on the role of regional cooperation for energy transition towards sustainable and resilient societies in Asia and the Pacific. We will begin with the introductory remarks by Mr. Hong Peng Liu, Director of Energy Division and the Secretary of this forum. Mr. Liu, you have the floor now.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. So this presentation summarizes the findings of 2 documents prepared for APEF. So the official document, Energy Transition in Asian Pacific, Pathways to Ensure Access to Affordable, Reliable, Sustainable, and Modern Energy for All, and its accompanying report, Energy Transition Pathways for 2030 Agenda for Asia and Pacific. So ESCAP, through the developing of a range of scenarios, has constructed a series of pathways to achieve these objectives. This analysis is intended to assist the formation of national policies to allow the region to meet those objectives and navigate the energy transition. Policymakers in Asia Pacific face 3 principal challenges. Firstly, to ensure energy supply is adequate to meet growing demand. Secondly, achieving SDG 7, renewable energy, energy efficiency, and universal access to modern energy. Thirdly, to achieve the emission reductions target under their nationally determined contributions through decarbonizing the energy sector. Asia Pacific's progress on SDG 7 has been mixed. Access to electricity has climbed to 90% from 70% in 1990. Progress on access to clean cooking fuels has been slow, increasingly by only 7% to 49.6% over the decade to 2014. Today, we still have 2.2 billion population still cooking with the traditional biomass. The share of renewable energy, including traditional biomass, in final energy consumption actually declined from 23% to 18.3% over the period of 1990 to 2014. While growth in renewable energy has been strong, it has been outpaced by demand growth and fossil fuels utilization. Progress in energy efficiency has enabled the region to decouple energy use and GDP growth. Efficiency improvement has accelerated. Primary energy intensity, the ratio of primary energy to GDP, declined by 3% annually from 2012 to 2014. So the SDGs offers many interlinkages between their goals and targets. This requires integrated planning. Therefore, it is important that energy transition be aligned with SDGs and NDCs, while focusing on realizing economic, social, and environmental benefits of sustainable energy. So forecasting energy trends for Asian Pacific is challenging. Global models do not provide access to underlying data, while region-specific models are scarce. The absence of tailored Asia-Pacific energy models leaves decision makers with a critical information gap. We examined the existing scenarios and the forecasting tools. Depending on today's policy choices, energy demand in 2030 may vary by as much as 25%. Energy efficiency is vital to curbing energy demand and reducing emissions. Renewable energy also offers emissions reductions potential and can meet demand growth. Policy frameworks must address both areas, while recognizing that fossil fuels will remain part of the energy mix. Provision of universal access will not impede progress towards demand and emission reduction targets. It can be complementary to renewable energy and the energy efficiency target, and may only increase global energy demand by 0.23%. Renewable energy and energy efficiency also provide solutions for universal access. So the good news is, under the current policy scenario, access to electricity will reach 99% by 2030. Regionally, investment of 0.33 billion to 1.7 billion annually will be required to reach this 99% access, depending on the level of energy supply required per household. Much of the progress made in South and Southwest Asia, as shown in the chart. India will dominate growth with its ambitious target of ensuring electricity for all by 2019. Access levels in Pacific and the Southeast Asia regions will increase by 11% and 6% respectively by 2030. Experience has shown that attaining this last 10 to 15% is expensive and also taking a longer time. Current statistics do not capture the quality of access, which has a strong bearing on social well-being. The multi-tier framework proposed by the World Bank provides this basis that outlines the challenges. For example, considering the number of hours of electricity and its affordability, capturing the quality of service will be crucial to inform national strategies. For clean cooking, clear policy measures are absent in most of member countries in ESCAP, making the development of a clear baseline difficult. The current policy outlook sees access to clean cooking fuels increasing from 50% in 2014 to 68% by 2030, leaving 1.6 billion people still cooking with the traditional biomass. So well short of target of universal access. According to WHO, this will cause over 2 million premature deaths due to indoor air pollution from using solid biofuels. Countries will need to explore locally appropriate solutions that are cost-effective and also can be implemented rapidly. If we deliver on existing renewable energy target by member states, the share of renewables, including traditional biomass utilization, will decrease from 18% in 2014 to 15.7% in 2030. There are two reasons for decline. One, the share of traditional biomass in energy consumption will continue to decline. Two, energy consumption has been increasing since 1990 and will continue growing faster than modern renewable energy. However, the prospect of modern renewable energy is a more positive story. Under the current policy scenario, its share will grow from 7% currently to 14% by 2030. However, under SDG 7 scenario, the share is required to reach 22%. The more ambitious NDC scenario will require modern renewable energy to grow at 35%. Renewables will mainly be used for power generation, expected to mark up 37% of total power generation in Asia Pacific, nearly doubling the 2014 share of 19%. In the electricity generation mix, the share of fossil fuel will fall from 70.6% to 54% in 2030. SDG 7 requires a doubling of energy efficiency improvement trade by 2030. This should be measured by change in energy intensity, the ratio of total primary energy consumption, energy supply to GDP. The Asia-Pacific 2030 energy efficiency business as usual outlook is based on APEC target of 40% energy intensity reduction from 2010 to 2030. Despite the differences in APEC and ESCAP coverage, this is an indicative regional baseline for 2030. Primary energy intensity under the current policy scenario will drop to 3.97 megajoule per dollar by 2030. So the major of SDG 7 target energy intensity would need to drop to 2.52 megajoule per dollar 2030. So progress to 2030 in enhanced energy efficiency needs to be about 50% higher than what was achieved over 2000 to 2014 to meet SDG 7. So good examples of progress in energy efficiency can be found within the region. Many Asia-Pacific countries were able to outpace the global trends over 2012 to 2014, with some achieving 5 to 6 times of global average rate. Analyzing the highest consumption sectors of the economy can help identify energy efficiency priorities, interventions. The 2030 investment gap in renewable energy compared to 2014 levels is estimated to be $204 billion in SDG scenario and $385 billion in NDC scenario. Even to implement the current policy scenario, a funding gap of $103 billion exists. Significant efforts to attract private investment must be mobilized. Fossil fuel subsidies may impede the energy transaction. Consumer-based fossil fuel subsidies stands at $148 billion in ESCAP member states, 56% of global total. Driving this could finance most of the investment needed for SDG 7. Some countries have adopted approaches to address this, such as putting a levy on petroleum fuels and introducing emissions trading schemes. Learning from regional experience and best practices could translate such development to other countries. Capacity building is needed in our countries to understand and direct the energy transition at the national level. ESCAP's reports propose an energy transition roadmap tool that can assist policymakers in setting appropriate targets, choosing technologies, stimulating the market, generating private investment, developing projects, and measuring progress. If hosted on the regional platform, this tool would assist in tracking the progress of energy transition for the whole region. So let me finish by highlighting a few policy recommendations contained in the report. Our analysis concludes that current policy frameworks are insufficient to reach SDG and NDC's target. Only 34 countries in Asia-Pacific region have achieved or set a target to achieve universal access to electricity by 2030. Specific targets and actions for the access to clean cooking fuels are largely absent. The trajectory of renewable energy and energy efficiency under today's policies also falls short of targets. The risk of understanding targets can be lowered by developing energy transition roadmaps to guide national policy development and facilitate resources mobilization. On energy access options, distributed renewable energy systems such as mini-grid and standalone solar home systems can be deployed quickly and often at lower cost than grid extension. The technology choices for access to clean cooking fuels will depend on locally available resources and the social cultural aspects of a community. So LPG stoves are suitable for areas with LPG supply networks. The use of improved coke stoves can be an option used to reach the last mile, but requires development of stoves that suit local context. Growth in renewable energy poses technical challenges for electricity networks to accommodate high penetration levels of variable renewable energy electricity. Forced curtailment of renewable energy occurs in some countries without technical and policy interventions. This problem will increasingly occur as countries transition to higher shares of renewable energy. Technological solutions are available. One of these is interconnections on grid to expand and connect different loads and generation sources. This is a promising solution, offering other benefits, including lower prices and improved energy security. The synergies between renewable energy and energy efficiency mean that they should be developed in conjunction rather than in isolation, and such synergies can help achieve both SDGs and the NDC scenarios. As this presentation highlighted, ESCAP has undertaken analysis on understanding the future of energy in Asia Pacific. We have proposed the frameworks and the solutions that will help member states capture opportunities and managing risks in the energy sector in order to achieve globally agreed goals. I look forward to our coming discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu, for the introduction to the agenda item. We will now proceed with the keynote speeches. Today we have the honor of hearing from 4 distinguished individuals. The first is Mr. Tawarth Sutabutur, Director General, Energy Policy and Planning Office, Ministry of Energy, Thailand. The Energy Ministry's current roadmap, the Thailand Power Development Plan, focuses on energy efficiency, alternative energies, natural gas and petroleum management. Prior to his current role, Mr. Sutabutur served as the Deputy Director General of the Department of Alternative Energy Development and Efficiency. Our second speaker is Mr. Sun Jian Sheng, Secretary General, International Energy Forum. IEF is a neutral facilitator of open dialogue that aims to foster greater mutual understanding and awareness of common energy interests among its 72 member countries. Prior to his work with IEF, Mr. Sheng served as the President of China National Petroleum Corporation's Economic and Technology Research Institute, where he led a team of over 370 staff reporting to the Chinese leadership on energy policy decision-making. Our third speaker will be Professor Joyashri Roy, inaugural Bangabandhu Chair, Asian Institute of Technology, and Professor of Economics, Jadavpur University, India. Ms. Joyashri is ICSSR National Fellow. She was Ford Foundation Postdoctoral Fellow at LBNL, Berkeley, USA. She is an IPCC 2007 Nobel Peace Prize winning panel as the chapter author of Global Energy Assessment. Our fourth and final speaker will be Mr. Edward Locke, Partner, Head of Energy Services for Thailand and Southeast Asia, McKinsey & Company. Mr. Locke serves McKinsey's Global Energy and Materials Practice and Recovery and Transformation Services Practice, focusing on accelerated transformation of energy businesses, large-scale infrastructure, and capital projects across the world. Prior to joining McKinsey, Mr. Locke served as a representative to the European Union in the UK Parliament. It is now my pleasure to introduce the first of our keynote speakers, Mr. Tawarth Sutabutur, Director General, Energy Policy and Planning Office, Ministry of Energy, Thailand.
Sawadee krap, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I serve you as a pinch hitter today. Pinch hit for my minister. But Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, Ministers, Ambassadors from Member States, Madam Shamshat, Executive Secretary for ESCAP, honorable delegates, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning and welcome to Bangkok. On behalf of my minister, Minister Sri Jirapongpan, Minister of Energy of Thailand, I wish to thank UN ESCAP for inviting Thailand to co-host this second Asian Pacific Energy Forum organized here in Bangkok. And I serve you, as I mentioned, as a pinch hitter to deliver a keynote address on behalf of my minister today. My remarks would enhance on energy security and Thailand's pursuit for sustainable development goals, which are our major concern and challenges. And I do believe this concern and challenges is the sharing commons for all member states in ESCAP region. Therefore, in this meeting, I would like to update a few progress of Thailand in which we have been achieved since the first Asian Pacific Energy Forum, first held in Vladivostok in Russian Federation back in 2013. 5 key indicators has been achieved in the past few years. Number 1, the total renewables energy mix in our portfolio reached about 14%. Secondly, the mix of renewable energy power, excluding hydropower, either domestically produced or interconnected from neighboring countries, reached the levels of 7%. Mostly are bio-based and solar and wind power. If include the hydro projects, both domestically produced and interconnected with our neighboring countries, the share of renewables energy power in our mix would approximately close to 20%. Thirdly, Thailand has reached 99.5 electrification levels, in which the rest of the 0.5% are the most difficult one, either in the mountain tops and most of the villages in the islands. Fourthly, our energy intensity has been improving approximately 1.1 to 1.2% per year. And fifthly, Thailand is in the final episode of phasing out our final petroleum product subsidy, in which is the LPG. We have several measures to soft landing, such as phasing out of this LPG subsidy. Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, against the backdrop of expecting rising energy demand, the energy security should be a prime goal to all member states to move forward to meet SDG 7 goals. In Thailand, electricity supply is carried out by setting a guidelines on fuel diversification in power generations to reduce the heavy reliance on natural gas and to promote more balanced and more diverse fuel mix in our power generations. We are moving towards more renewable energy and more interconnectivity with cleaner sources of energy from neighboring countries. Our bio-based power is our mainstream renewable energy sources in the country, accounting for more than 3,000 megawatts, or approximately 7% of our generation assets. For the regional power integration, our long-term ASEAN bilateral power purchase and connectivity project under ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation of APAEC become a role model that has been upgradable to a successful bi- and tri-connectivity project, such as Thailand's and Laos PDR connectivity, and also Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, or LTM project. Although the Asia-Pacific still possesses abundant energy resources, including oil and natural gas, and comprised of both major importers and producers, but from the current trend, we are moving towards more energy transition, in which renewable energy would penetrate more, and each country would become more interdependent on each other. Excellency, to deal with these challenges and new uncertain in energy future, policymakers should develop a better understanding and opportunity and challenges that arises from increasing disruptive technology. Government should develop a vision for sustainable energy future to address multiple energy policy challenges and tracks its progress towards national goals. The key success to reach such a goal is the government effective and predictable policy. More importantly, energy policy, energy regulation, finance and market mechanism must be adapted in harmony to support this challenging energy transition that can bring solution of policy into action. For Thailand, we have initiated Thailand 4.0 policy to revive our economy, increase the country's competitiveness, and escape the middle income trap by transforming the country's economic structure and to value an innovation-based economy. To be in line with the overall Thailand 4.0 policy, the Ministry of Energy has launched Energy 4.0 policy. This policy would comprise of 4 major pillars, including promotion of electric vehicles, a promotion of energy storage, a promotion of a hybrid renewable energy power generations, and also the promotion of smart city and smart grid. In driving the Energy 4.0 policy towards our future, Thailand needs more international cooperations in exchange of research and development and technology transfer. On another front, Thailand has been implemented the National Bioeconomy Strategy to upgrade our commodity crops and agricultural residue to become a more high-value products. The current government policy in promoting biofuels and bio-based power generation not only enhance the energy security, but also increase the revenue for the well-being of the citizens. At the moment, biofuels take account of approximately 9 to 10% of overall transportation energy in both form of bioethanol and biodiesel. Excellency, as Thailand will assume ASEAN chairmanship in 2019, we are earnestly moved towards the target of 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development. I believe achieving the Sustainable Development Goals require shared responsibility and collective effort with full engagement and contribution from all stakeholders, including a national and regional cooperation and inclusive government, private sector, civil society, and community. Thailand would like to once again thank the UN ESCAP for the great effort in organizing this important high-level gathering as a neutral platform of policymakers to meet and discuss via comprehensive policy dialogue, as well as to become a springboard towards the energy security implication of cleaner transition pathway between Asia and the Pacific members for common understandings and mutual benefit towards achieving sustainable development goals. Thailand stands firm to cooperate with United Nations and its relevant agency and all member states to reinforce our energy cooperation, leading to strengthen our energy security through greater effort in increasing access to further utilize energy resources and explore its balance as our future energy choices. I do believe greater involvement and engagement of all members will definitely make Asia-Pacific rise above all the challenges. I trust that this second Asian and Pacific Energy Forum would further pave the way for closer energy cooperation in the region and in the world. I wish the forum a very success. Once again, thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ
Thank you very much, Mr. Sutabudra. Now I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Sun Jian Cheng, Secretary General, International Energy Forum. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Excellency Shamshak Atka, I'm the Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of ESCAP. Your Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind invitation for me to the Second Asia and the Pacific Energy Forum. I'm honored to speak to you today on IEF's perspective on the balancing growth and energy transition through the cooperation. Today, the energy industry is changing at a faster pace than at any point in our lifetime. Structural sectoral changes are shifting the energy mix towards lower carbon resources, driven by the advancements in technology and growing environmental concerns. Lower carbon emissions and green, high-efficient, sustainable energy is a future trend without any doubt. At the same time, fossil fuels remains a reality we cannot ignore. The key will be to balance these two developments for an orderly energy transition and ensure the energy security for all. To realize such a balance, we must consider our current reality, energy trends, and the projections, and the three key challenges. According to the main IEA and OPEC outlooks, fossil fuels currently make up around 80% of our global energy mix. Although wind and solar energy have been exponentially growth, they will account for around a small number so far. By 2040, however, wind and solar will comprise around the 6 to 10% of the global energy mix. Renewables generally will continue to grow rapidly due to the falling cost and through the advanced technology innovation. Meanwhile, natural gas shows the strongest the growth in sharing among fossil fuels and will overtake the coal as the second largest source of the hydrocarbons. This means the global energy mix will become the most diverse the world has ever seen by 2040. With oil and gas, coal, and non-fossil fuels, each comprise around a quarter of the total mix. We cannot forget that the energy demand will continue to grow in the coming decades. rising by a surge into 2040, driven by the growth in the population and the GDP, particularly in emerging Asian economies. More notably, oil still accounts for around 80 to 85% of total transportation fuel by 2040, down from the current 94%. Even if projections point towards the global demand for crude oil, the need for investment to maintain and increase the production is now more present than ever. At the same time, advances in technology are reshaping the energy landscape. Improved batteries, solar conversion, electricity storage, and autonomous vehicles and other emerging technologies are rapidly accelerating the energy transition. The question is if this growth will continue at the same pace and meet the incremental demand. This brings me to the three key challenges we face today. The first, inclusive growth and energy access. The second, a balance between the investment and the transition. The third one, uncertainty of technology evolution. The growth of energy demand in response to industrialization, urbanization, and the social affluence has led to an uneven global distribution of primary energy consumption. We need to ensure inclusive growth while work towards energy access for all. Secondly, we realize and have a greater awareness of the energy transition, but the key is to balance such a transition with the growing energy demand. We must find a balance between the fossil fuel investment while at the same time work towards transition. Thirdly, without acknowledging how the technology evolution will proceed, we must remain realistic and consider the basket of energy sources rather than pin our hopes on one or the other. While the Paris Agreement and the United Nations 2030 Agenda on the Sustainable Development have set the global direction for a successful energy transition, a mixture of realism and long-term planning is required to successfully implement it. Global energy dialogue committed to overcoming these challenges together will be critical at both a regional and global level. Over the past years, the International Energy Forum has established its role as a key contributor to enhance producer-consumer energy dialogue and has worked relentlessly to contribute towards a more sustainable and reliable energy future. As a neutral facilitator of the informal, open, and inclusive energy dialogue, the IEF encourages and promotes a collaborative framework to foster greater mutual understanding and awareness of a common energy interest and issues. This includes improving data transparency through our joint organization data initiative, taking full advantage of the IEF platform to conduct global energy dialogue and ensuring the transition process in an orderly fashion. Global energy dialogue is and will be imperative to guarantee a prosperous energy future. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you again to APEF for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sun Xian Sheng. I now invite our next keynote speaker, Professor Joyashri Roy, Distinguished Bangabandhu Chair, Asian Institute of Technology and Professor of Economics.
Good morning, everybody. And it's my pleasure that I have been given the opportunity to talk to this august audience today. I will focus on two current dominant global discourses. One is relatively new, and one is an unfinished agenda. New discourse affects and includes each and every country and citizen, and which is unprecedented due to its scale. This is climate change. This discourse, supported by strong scientific assessment and evidence, says that there is very strong urgency in action towards cleaner energy penetration at an unprecedented rate and speed. We need to make it happen globally in next 1 or 2 decades to avoid any overshoot in temperature towards long-term stabilization. So the time horizon for decision towards action on the ground is today and tomorrow, and not in the long future, which we used to talk 10, 15 years back. And in this regard, even more concern is that the NDCs declared by all the, or committed by all the countries, also do not provide us hope to achieve the desired 1.5 degree goal or even 2 degree goal. So there is urgent need for ramping up the NDCs as well. I'm not sounding very positive, but I'm sounding the reality, what we really all need to respond to. So major conclusions from global assessment reports raises bigger question, which provide opportunities to decide a way forward. It's just not one way, but it provides chances to make a choice for multiple ways. What do we decide about our business as usual way of taking out carbon under the ground in the form of coal, oil, and gas? This is very relevant for Asia-Pacific region, which is still fossil fuel rich and a big user. If we decide fossil fuel way, then question is, how do we decide toward capture of carbon released and store it or use it? Role of energy supply sector, industry sector becomes disproportionately high for deployment of CCS and CCU technology. Also, there should be new regulations, risk management, science policy integration, more cooperation for large-scale infrastructure development, investment, taking it to more maturity, and all these things needs to be decided now. Or it can come through sequestration of carbon, bioenergy, and carbon capture and storage and usage, which will have large-scale implication on land use change. So the energy transition need must go beyond just current incremental change paradigm defined by energy efficiency and renewable energy covering solar, wind, and biomass and decentralized generation. A second dominant discourse, which is very closely related to climate change discourse and not new, but is a major unfinished global agenda, but more of national concern, is about human development, equity, and justice. Access to basic needs like energy is a prime mover for humanity's progress. History has proved that. Asia-Pacific region, which houses more than half of the global population, is not a homogeneous region. It houses economically highly developed countries and least developed countries with rich socio-cultural diversity, with high mountains, small islands, active delta, rapidly urbanizing human settlements, and oceans. I often hear debate about how the region might rise over the course of next 2.5 decades, by which time the regional population growth will be peaking and continue to maintain the highest share in global population through the rest of the century. There is a debate, should the region look at the history and of humanity's progress and try to catch up, or should it try to reinvent the wheel of humanity's progress? Large number of literature very strongly show over past 2 centuries, widespread energy access has helped in improving the lives of the citizens and build dynamic, prosperous societies in global north. Almost 30 to 40% of human settlements in the less developed and developing countries in the region have already followed the path of progress that has proved successful in improving individual quality of life and are on the way to adopting solutions for improving social and environmental quality. So the question is now, about the remaining 60 to 70% of human settlements of the region where people do not have adequate access to basic necessities, for cooking, lighting, cooling and heating, safe drinking water, sanitation and hygiene, shelter and natural calamities, access to good health care, sufficient skills to participate in mainstream discourse and so on. So if we talk of equality and justice, there can be no denial of progress for these 60 to 70% of the region, given that no difference exists in human aspiration levels. The faster we move to bridge the gap, the faster peace and harmony will be achieved. Now, United Nations has highlighted the role of energy access in achieving development objectives like economic growth, public health, and education. Global energy assessment in 2012, and for that matter of many global level assessments, do include energy access scenario. However, large number of research across regions show that the energy access proposals outlined by these studies or groups are inadequate for long-term socio-economic development. Most important aspiration for basic need to go beyond access to electricity to power a fan, couple of light bulbs, and a radio for 5 to 6 hours a day. So here is a huge unfinished agenda looming on this region. So what is really needed is the discourse in the region should go beyond very small energy access provision, which is currently discussed. So it should go beyond just domestic lighting. It should provide industry scale energy to the rural areas so that the situation can improve at a faster rate in next 1 or 2 decades in the region. So, largest obstacle to an explicit international embrace of equitable and energy access is that it is seen as a conflicting with the climate change goals. But the fact that appearance of conflict between energy needs of developing countries and need to address the climate change can be solved if we are thinking of integrating both the small-scale intervention and the very large-scale intervention in the region, in the sense that large-scale energy infrastructure is also needed in the region when we are talking of distributed generation as well. So there is need for regional cooperation and regional grid, which can connect or make the region secure and just not think in terms of national energy security, which might not be achieved in a climate compatible way. So regional cooperation can help in achieving energy security and the climate compatibility in the region to a large extent. So the discourse in this region should not be confined only to the small-scale provision of energy access, renewable, and energy efficiency. The strongest urge from all the global energy assessments shows that there is need for not leaving behind any of the options, large or small or medium. And all actions should start from today, and we cannot defer it till tomorrow, although we should be having a long-term goal of stabilization and no overshoot in the near term. With these words, I'll be stopping here, and thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Professor Roy. I'd like to now invite our last speaker, Mr. Edward Locke, partner, McKinsey & Company, to deliver his statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And on behalf of McKinsey & Company, thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I will be very brief. I've been asked to be brief, and so I will be brief. I'd like to share two things with you. First of all, the outcome of our research on the global energy perspective, which is a bottom-up piece of work that we've done to look at future trends in energy demand and supply. And then secondly, some work that we did with the WEF on how ready countries are for the coming energy transition. And really three things to say. First of all, as we've heard, energy demand is going to grow, and particularly so in Asia, less so in the rest of the world, but particularly so in Asia. 40%, as you can see on the slides, between now and 2018. Secondly, if we move to the next slide, the bulk of this growth in energy demand is going to be through electrification. So electricity will become the key primary power source. And we see this globally, but we see this particularly strongly across Asia. And you can see on the chart here that particularly in South and Southwest Asia, and then in Southeast Asia where we are today, the increase in electrification, or the increase in electricity consumption between now and 2050 is between 250 to 350%. So a very, very significant increase in the demand for electricity particularly. So then we looked a little bit at what does this mean on the supply side. And the really good news for those of you who's been talking about renewable energy sources and the importance of sustainability is that as early as 2020, we believe that new build solar and wind will be a much cheaper source of electricity than the current fossil fuels. So the chart here shows you that in India, in Vietnam, in Japan, in China, and in Australia, those two renewable sources of electricity will be cheaper to construct than coal or gas power plants. So a very heartwarming, I think, message for those of you who've been talking about sustainability thus far. But then, just to the next slide, please. We were thinking a little bit how to demonstrate the scale of the challenge. And we thought, so we're in Thailand today, what would it take to use Thailand as an example, if Thailand was to use solar energy to power the growth in electricity demand across Asia for 2050, how much would need to be constructed? And as you can see on the chart here, you would actually need to fill 90% of the area of Thailand with new build solar plants to be able to meet that demand for electricity by 2050. So obviously you would not build them all in Thailand, but just to give you an example of the scale of the challenge with the current technology. Let me talk very briefly about the other side of this on the next slide, please. So when we then talked about how ready are countries actually to go through this energy transition. And we split this into two dimensions. First of all, how advanced is the energy system that you have today in each of the countries? And that's about access, it's about environmental sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. And then how ready are the individual governments for the energy transition in terms of regulations and in terms of institutions? And on the next slide, we've plotted out where everybody sits. And from top left, the leading countries, they tend to be the European countries, where they both have very strong systems or very advanced systems, but also regulation and the government preparedness is more advanced. So they're up in the top right-hand corner. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, usually South American and African countries, where there is a little bit more work to do. Asia, we've highlighted a lot of the Asian countries in orange here, and the Asian countries tend to come somewhere in the middle of the pack. And I think really that means for everybody in this room that there is still substantial work to do in both of these dimensions to really get ready for this energy transition and to stay ahead of the game. So on the last and very final slide, just a few thoughts, and some of these I've heard echoed by others in the room. What is important? So first of all, important to define the target energy mix for each of the countries. And that doesn't mean only sustainable sources. There is still a role for gas, there is still a role for oil, and there is to some extent still a role for coal, but it is declining. Secondly, and very importantly, how do you set up to be able to attract the levels of domestic and foreign investment that will be required to fuel this growth and this change in technology? Thirdly, drafting the right legislation and making a clear political commitment to energy transition. And then finally, how do you build the right capabilities in both the public and private sectors to be able to make sure that this is successful and that the Asian companies stay ahead of that? So that was a very brief run through. We have plenty more, and do please be in contact if there's anything else that you would like to hear or more detail. But thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Edward Locke, for your very useful presentation. It's very educational. Thank you, distinguished speakers, all of you, for your inspiring words. I would now like to open the floor to the delegates for general statements. Country and organization statements may discuss aspiration towards energy transition for sustainable and resilient societies. Specific topics may include challenges in the implementation of SDG 7, measures taken by countries in addressing the said challenges, the role of energy connectivity in national policies and strategies, and the scope for regional cooperation to enhance energy for sustainable development. For your information, the general order of statements received shall follow this protocol. That is, we will begin with statements from members and associate members of ESCAP in the order in which they were received and in the order in which interest is expressed from the floor, followed by statements from any permanent observers, designated representatives of UN bodies and specialized agencies and intergovernmental organizations, and lastly, by statements from representatives of civil society, organizations, and other entities. The floor is now open for general statements. I would like to invite the first speaker on the list, the distinguished delegate from Myanmar, His Excellency U Win Haing, Union Minister for Electricity and Energy of Myanmar. Please take the floor, Excellency.
Your Excellency, Mr. Virazakti Putrakul, Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, Madam Shanchut Akhtar, Executive Secretary of ESCAP, distinguished delegates and guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Ministry of Electricity and Energy of Myanmar, I am honored to be part of this wonderful occasion today. It gives me great pleasure and very pleased to send my greetings to all who have come to attend this second Asian and Pacific Energy Forum. First of all, I highly appreciate and acknowledge the tremendous efforts of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, ESCAP, for organizing this forum, and the Ministry of Energy and the Government of Thailand for hosting this event. Excellencies, honorable guests, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, in line with the Sustainable Development Goal 7, Myanmar has been working on various pillars of sustainable energy developments in meeting domestic energy demand needs. Myanmar is currently one of the lowest energy intensity countries in the region, with per capita consumption of about 380 kilowatt per hour per annum. Our country had an electrification rate of less than 30% a couple of years ago. However, electrification rate has now increased to 40% household. Rural electrification rate is 51% now. We are working strongly to reach our common goal of universal access to energy, and particularly, Myanmar is committed to access to electricity to all by 2030. Excellencies, honorable guests, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, as you may be all aware, Myanmar has been traditionally relying on biomass of about 70% in the total primary energy mix, which is the main source of energy for rural households for cooking and heating purposes. In terms of power mix, hydropower is by far the most widely used, to be 60 to 70% of the mix. But as we are working on providing sustainable and reliable energy supply, the use of natural gas has increased in the power generation mix. The percent share of electricity generated by gas-fired power plants has increased to about 50% of total generation last year. Accordingly, demand for gas has been dramatically increasing, and Myanmar is constrained on additional gas supply for the near future. In order to bridge the gas supply-demand gap, we have embarked to conduct LNG business, which will suffix the gas requirements for electricity and industrial sector developments. Myanmar is abundant in hydro, solar, and gas resources, and we are planning to utilize all resources in our future energy mix. They are all relatively cleaner in nature, and our coal generation is only less than 1% in total generation mix. Therefore, Myanmar has relatively low carbon footprint in the existing generation mix. Myanmar is committed to adopt COP21 Paris Agreement and ASEAN Energy Renewable Goal to address environmental aspects in energy developments. Developing natural gas is very important for reliable and affordable clean energy supply, and we are continuing to explore and develop domestic gas resources, both offshore and onshore areas. Some of them are still frontier and prospects remain unexplored. Therefore, we will have the potential investment in E&P business of Myanmar by bidding rounds very soon. In terms of renewable energy, we are also looking into more renewable energy development options, including solar, wind, and biomass. We have recently broken ground for a 40 megawatt of solar power plant in Minbu, central Myanmar, as part of the 170 megawatt total capacity. Moreover, mini-grid solar power and solar home systems are also being developed widely in the remote areas across the country. For accelerating household access to clean cooking and heating, Myanmar is developing the LPG value chains and infrastructure. We have issued different licenses for LPG importation and retail business, which has led to LPG demand increased. We are currently using LPG about 5,000 tons per month, which is forecasted to increase dramatically after new LPG terminals under construction are completed. We encourage for supply LPG up to 1 million households by the year 2020. This will help to reduce the use of trees as source of energy, and the process will act as catalyst for conserving the environment. Excellencies, honorable guests, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, cross-border electricity connectivity is also viewed as an option of energy transmission for a paradigm shift in energy systems. We are engaging talks with neighboring countries on options for electricity trade. We believe this will enhance regional cooperation for energy security, but there are still a number of challenges to address, including legal frameworks, transmission system interconnection, and financial issues, etc. For the energy efficiency, we try hard for loss reduction in transmission and distribution system. Transmission losses is quite achievable to 3%, and distribution losses could be reduced from 25% in the past decade to the present 12%. Our target is to be a single digit, so as to upgrading the distribution network. On the other hand, quality, reliability, stability of electricity, and efficient services are being enhanced for consumer satisfaction. Electricity tariff in Myanmar are among the lowest in the ASEAN region. It has caused much inefficiency, as tariff rates need to reflect reliable cost of power. We are now reviewing electricity tariff structure that can ensure sustainable and affordable energy supply for all users in our country. Energy efficiency can be one of the key solutions for low-income households to elevate the quality of life. Myanmar being a latecomer in the energy development, it will be very beneficial for us and to the region to consider energy efficiency to achieve sustainable and affordable energy goals. We believe a great deal of economic value could be created by improved energy intensity and energy saving, and that should be incorporated into our energy policies both in Myanmar and in the region. New technologies in generation, distribution, and transmission sectors should also be emphasized in our energy policies to achieve more affordable, sustainable, and cleaner energy developments in the region for the long run. In conclusion, Myanmar is willing to contribute to Sustainable Development Goal 7 in cooperation with the regional countries and the UN agencies. Myanmar has proved our interest and commitment to energy transmission in Asia and the Pacific. Goals to assure access to sustainable energy throughout the years of our activities, which are all in line with the regional plans and goals. With this cooperation, I believe we can all achieve affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all in the future. And I wish the meeting be successful and fruitful for all participants today. Finally, I would like to once again extend my heartfelt gratitude to United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, ESCAP, for organizing this event. And last but not least, I would like to thank the Ministry of Energy and the Government of Thailand for hosting this second Asian and Pacific Energy Forum and kind hospitalities to us. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I'd now like to call upon the Honorable Minister Dr. Tawfiq Elahi Chaudhry, Honorable Advisor to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh for Power, Energy and Mineral Resources, to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't see the Executive Secretary of Madam Executive Secretary of ESCAP, distinguished ministers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great pleasure for us to be here and share with our region our experiences and our expectations for the future. Bangladesh, let me share some of our own perspective. Bangladesh has set out to achieve middle income status by 2031 and a developed country status by 2041. So with those major goals in mind, we are developing the subsets of our goals. Energy is one of the major subsets of our development plan. But a lot can be achieved, Excellencies. 10 years back, we had electricity excess of only 45%. Today, we have crossed the energy excess over 90%. So that means, given determination, given policies, and the will to do, a lot can be achieved. The challenges that lie ahead, Your Excellencies, is to match the demand mixes, the consumer demands, ordinary consumers, industrial consumers, commercial consumers, their demands with the energy mix that you propose to pursue. Let me give example. Bangladesh is a very small country, but at the same time a very big country. We have 160 million people crammed up in a small area of 145,000 square kilometers. That means a density of about 1,100 people per square kilometer, which provides challenges and also benefits. It was mentioned in this earlier presentation that if Thailand was to offer renewable energy for this region, the whole of Thailand would be packed up with only solar farm. Bangladesh faces the real challenges in terms of inducting renewable energy because it's a very small area country. But then there can be innovation which can be contextualized to achieve bigger goals. For example, we have about 5 million solar home system in Bangladesh, the largest solar home system in the world. Because after all, roofs are there. So we kind of did a financial engineering along with technical support in a very decentralized way. And we have achieved that, and 5 million households, which means about 20 million people get their electricity at household level from solar energy. But Excellencies, this will keep changing, you know. As our labor energy intensity increases, as we need more workhorses for industries, the storyline will change. And that's why we face big challenges. For example, we had to go for coal because our own gas resources are depleting. As my friend from Myanmar said, we are neighbors. So we're trying to develop new gas resources. But given the price of gas, international commitment, investment has fallen by $150 billion. So where do we go? Coal became a natural option for us. But we tried, and we are trying to go for the best of the technology, ultra supercritical technology, be empathetic towards nature, environment. So you cannot take a dogmatic view when you face the challenges. On the other hand, we have already, about a decade back, we have announced our policy for renewable energy. We have made a roadmap for energy efficiency and conservation. And we need to go for innovative ways as we move along our pathway to development. And countries will face country-specific challenges. So we need to look at those challenges and have our own solution. In power generation, for example, Excellencies, we look for higher efficiency. That is in terms of combined cycle efficient power plants. But there is a huge scope for energy improvement. If we go for cogeneration, trigeneration, quadruple generation, pentageneration is possible. But, you know, ordinarily the vendors would not come with these options. We have to be creative and find how our primary energy can be best used for ultimate delivery of energy services to our customers. Similarly, in the case of energy planning, we have a master plan for electricity going up to 2041. We couldn't do as good on the primary energy side because that remains very volatile and an evolving market. For example, it was mentioned that LNG can be a new input to our energy mix. We are actually having the first floating terminal next month, and then another floating terminal for LNG after a couple of months. But that also raises questions. How do you pass on the cost of the new energy to your customers? Our income is low. We cannot afford to pass on all the costs to the customers. Whereas our services are very different. It's not a private good in the remote areas of villages. Energy services are more of a public good. If you provide electricity, a mother can take care of the children. Women are empowered. Maternal mortality goes down. Infant mortality goes down. So it's more of a merit good in the rural areas. So with these challenges of higher cost of imported energy and the affordability to provide cheap, efficient, reliable energy to your customers, it remains a huge challenge. And, you know, the budgetary support that would call for to maintain a balance is really a challenge for developing countries like Bangladesh. I would in fact look forward to ESCAP in finding ways of how these financial challenges can be matched with the expectation for renewable energy, sustainable energy, long-term energy efficiency, conservation, how to get this marriage done. It is a big challenge. One other choice we quite often miss out is energy responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, we talk about energy efficiency, energy conservation, but we don't talk about energy responsibility. You see cities in Western world lighted 24 hours, shining in night, wasting energy. It's not responsible. The Mother Earth has only limited resources to offer. So we have to bring in behavioral changes ourselves to limit our demands. It's not, if I can afford, I can go and spend. No. Our Prime Minister, when she goes on a public meeting, she tells people that turn off your light when you go out of the room. Don't have the fan on when you go out of the room. This kind of behavioral changes will be required globally if we want to be responsible in terms of energy use. One last point, Excellencies, I would like to put forward to this August gathering. We see a huge disruptive changes coming in the future. The footprints may be in the present, but we don't know what the footprints are. If ESCAP and other regional bodies could host conferences on frontier technologies, which could be accessed, that would be a huge benefit for others. We are trying to find out some of these by establishing Energy and Power Research Council to do research ourselves. But we should have some platform where frontier technologies could be brought forward for discussion. I think my time is up. Thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm very grateful, Excellency Dr. Tawfiq Elahi, Advisor to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh for Power, Energy and Mineral Resources. I'd like to now wear the hat of the head of my own country's delegation, which is Pakistan, and like to just give you a 5-minute brief of what Pakistan is doing in this particular area. And just to remind all the honorable speakers, starting with myself, obviously, that we should try to keep our statement within the 5 to 6 minute time frame. I'll be grateful for that. Well, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, on behalf of the government of Pakistan and over 207 million people of our country, let me thank UNESCAP and its dynamic executive secretary, Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, for holding such an important forum at this crucial juncture when the global community on one hand, under the auspices umbrella of the United Nations, has agreed on sustainable development goals and now increasingly aligning their national policies and programs to achieve the SDGs. I had a lot to say, but I'll come straight to the point since I just have 5 minutes. We are at the moment, as we speak, Pakistan is undergoing the authoring of our national electricity policy and plan, and reflecting on what Mr. Liu had to say in his presentation, where he made policy recommendations for policymakers for the energy transition in Asia and the Pacific, where he talked of alignment of national energy policy with the SDG 7, development of an energy transition roadmap, develop business and technology models for universal access, level playing field for renewable energy, accelerating renewable energy growth, and leveraging the synergies between renewable energy and energy efficiency. This is precisely what is happening inside Pakistan as we speak. We are looking at authoring the electricity plan and the policy, which will be approved from the highest constitutional body of our country, which involves all the 4 provinces and the federation itself. Then I would also like to offer to send the policy draft to UNESCAP for their input so that the synergies and the alignment of policy targets, as has been mentioned here at this forum, are ensured in Pakistan's policy. We're giving a huge amount of importance to renewables. We are trying to also synchronize our national water policy with our national electricity policy. We're looking at the policy over a grid of factors and issues, and that entire grid consists of the stabilization of our national grid, introduction of tariffs for systems which are based on solid waste coming out of our municipalities. We are looking at market transition, where we are moving from one purchaser of power and distributor into an environment where we would be having a national exchange for power, where bilateral trade of power could actually be taking place. We are looking at introduction of the retail operators beyond the distribution systems to create more competition. We already have a law that we have passed in the past 2-3 months, and this law has created an environment, just like Mr. Edward was saying. The environment is there for investments. We are the first country, we would be the first country. Just day before yesterday, our cabinet has approved the first ever competitive bidding process for a hybrid system of both solar and wind together. So we have places in Pakistan where there's wind energy available, where there is our prospects for wind energy. We are trying to get the wind and solar as a hybrid model, the first ever in the world. We are looking at our load centers. We are also looking at the possibility of doing a competitive bidding process for fuels like LNG or others, to be able to get the best price to pass on the benefits to our consumers, so that our base load plants also have a fuel diversity and energy security, but at the same time we have it at an affordable price. We are also looking, and we have already gone through easing off of regulations on our net metering systems across the country. Today, Pakistan has the most efficient net metering system regulations in the world. I'm very proud to state that. The wheeling regulations, where bulk buyers and sellers could ride over the system of the existing distribution companies to be able to pass on power in an efficient manner between businesses. This is already, a reference has been sent to the regulator. The law has been amended. The regulator is now fully empowered to carry out its responsibilities. We are also completely supportive of the fact of issues and recommendations like a regional data bank for off-grid energy solutions. We want a regional carbon market, such as the EU market, to manage the transition towards low carbon growth trajectories. We are interested in seeing in the future a regional grid as the European grid to impart stability. We want countries like Australia, who have been the first to embark upon grid-scaled renewable energy storage systems. We want our countries to start speaking to each other more often, to share the successful models and programs that they have implemented across. We are looking at resource commitments, especially for hydel power projects across the region, which also have reservoirs, to try to mitigate the climate change effects on agricultural-based economies across this region. We are also wanting to share experiences of programs in one of our provinces where there was a huge amount of electricity theft. The inefficiencies in distribution systems were actually marring the entire performance of the sector. We are introducing solar-powered agricultural tube wells, replacing more than 700 megawatts of power from inefficient electrically operated systems to efficient solar powered systems. So that's where conservation comes in. That's where saving of electricity and power comes in. That's where saving comes in as far as inefficient distribution systems are concerned. And that's why Pakistan, I believe, is on wanting to embark and has embarked upon the most cutting-edge technologies that are available in the world today. We are also very much interested, and I'd like to offer this, offer resources to build a renewable institute, a renewable energy regional institute, which Pakistan could contribute a huge amount to by taxing our fossil fuel-based power generation plants and extracting resources from there to be able to fund a renewable energy institute that could help the policymakers across the region in actually playing a part for renewables to be more important as, and maybe one day, part of the base load profile of our respective countries. So if there is any interest through the forum of UNESCAP, I'd like to offer any kind of cooperation for building and sustaining this renewable energy institute that could be housed in one of the best universities in our own, inside of Pakistan. Sharing of successful models, we've heard about off-grid solutions of countries like Bhutan, having the best and the most efficient off-grid solutions reached out to the most remote areas of their country. So sharing such information and knowledge would be a great source of asset, would be a great asset and a great source of support to any of the countries in this region. With this, I'd like to thank again UNESCAP and especially the government of Thailand for having played their role in supporting this very interesting and informative and useful forums that we are having as we speak. Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to now invite the Honorable Minister, Mr. Ruatiki Takiara, Minister for Infrastructure and Sustainable Energy, Kirbat.
Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, warm greetings to you from Kiribati, Amnabarani Maori. It is my great honor to deliver the country statement for Kiribati, highlighting the main challenges and efforts with regards to the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 7 as we continue to pursue energy security for sustainable development. As you may be aware, Kiribati is a small island nation of 33 Golo atolls located in the Central Pacific, with a total population of around 110,000 people. More than half of the population resides on the main island, South Tarawa. Because of limited resources and remoteness, Kiribati continues to rely quite heavily on imported fossil fuel, with our economy impacted by high transportation costs and world oil price fluctuations. The ever-increasing demand for energy in the overcrowded capital island is also a major challenge for the Kiribati government. Despite the vulnerabilities and challenges facing our nation, we continue to work very hard to prevail over them all. Through our regulatory and policy frameworks, such as the Kiribati National Energy Policy and Roadmap, fossil fuel use reduction targets, and nationally determined contributions, will have and will continue to implement renewable energy and efficient energy programs to further develop and enhance energy security for our citizens. As a testament to these efforts, access to renewable energy for households has notably increased from 17% in 2010 to more than 50% in 2015, while the number of households using diesel power generators decreased from 43% in 2010 to 37% in 2015. In terms of cooking fuels, The number of households using cleaner and more efficient cooking fuels, such as LPG and electricity, has increased from 3% in 2010 to more than 5% in 2015. Thanks to our international and regional development partners, overall, Kiribati has achieved 6% out of the 40% urban fuel use reduction target and 52% out of the 100% rural fuel use reduction target. The figures show that there is still more work to do, so we are now revising our old legislation to update and align it with the contemporary energy efficiency benchmarks and the newly introduced Kiribati vision for 20 years, KV20. This will allow us to achieve our fuel use reduction targets by 2025 and our NTCs by 2030. We will never forget the generous assistance of the global community in these endeavors, so I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our development partners in Asia and the world at large. Thank you very much for all your support in any kind. Mr. Chair, in closing, let me express my deep appreciation to our co-host, the Royal Thai government, for the warm hospitality extended to my delegation and to ESCAP for the superb organization of this forum. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Excellency. I'd like to now give the floor and invite His Excellency the Dawasuran Serenpil, Minister of Energy, Mongolia. And I do apologize if I haven't pronounced the name quite correctly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Esteemed ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the government of Mongolia, I am pleased to be here and greet you all in the second Asian and Pacific Energy Forum. The ongoing dialogue under the frameworks of the ESCAP about the current efforts and challenges among the member states on achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 7 is the most important measure for identifying action-oriented activities and required resources for regional cooperation for sustainable energy development.